And good evening, all. Welcome, chat. Welcome, panelists. I am delighted to have you all here this evening, especially since I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but we are having like the second gorgeous day out of months, it feels like, of rain. So I appreciate anyone being here for this when you could be out in the sun. As always, we have wonderful panelists. Barlow Keep is back with us again. BMAC and Chris are both here as first timers, but I'm really excited to hear about some of their games. And it turns out that Barlow Keep has BMAC's game already. So as always, we're going to get started with a few introductions. Barlow Keep, if you want to introduce yourself for anyone that missed your last appearance.
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me back. I had a wonderful time last time. And yeah, who am I? Well, I'm a software engineer from Belgrade, Serbia by day, and I would say a passionate game master and game designer by night, because that's mostly when I write. Kind of not only time management wise, but also creativity wise. So yeah, the hobby wasn't really big in Serbia for the longest time. I think it just started to appear and become more popular. So when I started playing, it was quite later in life. I would say this is my fourth year in the hobby, but it exploded my imagination completely. And the upside of all that is that there is not a lot of people here that are only into D&D. So the group that gathered around me and that I started playing with tried so many games that at the end we kind of decided to make our own. And yeah, so that's where I am right now. And of course, after all of that happened, I started the YouTube channel Barlow Keep, where I talk about a lot of thought-provoking ideas when it comes to running and hacking TTRPGs.
All right, thank you. Um, and just for everyone who likes to complain about the time that I stream, tell everyone what time it is where you are.
Oh, it's midnight. I'm the one of people that are complaining for sure. I never get to watch live and type stuff into the chat. I only see the replays, get left out.
All right, and BMAC.
Hey everybody, my name is Brett. I use he, they pronouns, and I live here in Southern California. It's kind of a gray, cloudy day right now. I work for a corporation by day, just like a business analyst sort of person. But I've always had a special interest in games, most specifically role playing games. I think the first time I ever played a role playing game was back in middle school. So we're getting close to like probably, I don't know, 17 years ago or something like that. But basically, COVID is what kicked me off into pursuing this hobby, this passion of mine more seriously. I am basically a public volunteer GM. I run one-shot sessions for strangers all around my city, and there's meetup groups that I'll go to and bring games and run games for folks. I have run games at conventions like San Diego Comic-Con. I just got back from a really fun gaming convention up in LA called Strategicon. And I'm just a purveyor of fun indie games. My claim to fame in the gaming community is that I think I've only played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition once since it's come out. So I'd like to keep it that way. Not that I have anything against it, but there's just a lot of other cool games to try out there.
Well, I approve of the lack of 5e. I am chuckling over the 17 years because now I feel really old.
Me too.
And I need to pick your brain about conventions later when this is done. So
Sure thing.
Chris.
Hi. So I'm Chris Hill. I have Scrapyard Games is my sort of passion project, but I've been gaming, specifically role playing games, for about 40 mumble years. It's been a while.
She even has me beat.
It's been a bit. And I like it so much that that's kind of what I do for a living. Is my husband and I own Crossroad Games in Standish, Maine, and so by day I am a game master, and by night I am a game designer. Um, yeah, here in lovely Southern Maine.
She's living the dream. She gets to do all the games all the time.
So many games, not enough time.
But you have more time for them than we do.
Well, I mean,
I keep
you know,
that's one
taxes
thing
and
about.
paperwork and business
Well, yeah,
running
that's true.
things.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, Rachel loves the scrap yarn. Yeah, so I totally lost where I was going to go with that. Never mind, forget it. I'm a little unfocused tonight. Not usually, but I am tonight. Okay, I want to say hello to the chat real quick. Rio is, as almost always, the first one here. I think he's only not been first once. So welcome, Rio. Legatus is one of our mods here, and is absolutely fabulous, and is a mod on many, many other great channels that if you should just follow him around and like find out where he hangs out, and they're always cool places. Rachel is almost always here and is one of our great cheerleaders, so I'm very happy to have you here. Eraserhead is our super mod. We call him the super mod because we're pretty sure that he doesn't just mod for people. We're pretty sure he actually just is the internet, because no matter when you are on, you will find him on some channel somewhere. So this is our he will become Skynet someday. That's the theory. And we have newcomers. I may butcher this, but I think that is Stasa. Your name is very cool.
Stasha Rudic,
Okay.
he is the mod for the Barlowkeep channel. Now that I'm trying the waters in streaming.
I did tell you I was going to butcher it. But it is it's a lovely name to I used to play a lot of Scrabble, and so interesting, interesting names like that always make me go, man, I wish you could use proper nouns.
Well, you pronounced it well the way it was written, but there is like a little thing missing on the second S. But we usually omit it because it's faster.
Okay. And Paul, welcome. I think maybe you are also new. The name looks kind of familiar, but I'm not sure it's been here. Oh, and he's also in the. See, I don't have to feel quite so old this time. Normally, I am the person on here who is like by far, like the entire panel has been playing as long as I have. If you put them together. I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
I think it's great though. Like,
Okay.
back in the day, right? Like, there were no gamers anywhere. There were certainly no girl gamers anywhere. So, and now it's become there's so many really great games, and there's so much cool stuff out there that people have grabbed onto it and are running with it. I think it's fantastic that, there are new people every day coming in to say, hey, I want to learn to play whatever game.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I wish we had more of that, as you venture northward, but everyone is still kind of stuck in their ruts up here.
I'll hook you up with some people. I know some folks.
That's awesome, because I have so many game ideas in my head these days that I can't keep them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eraserhead says he's here to make everyone feel old. He is in fact a puppy. Oh, and I do know Paul. Paul is apparently the alternate name of Woeful, who was on was on a panel a couple of weeks ago. All right. So I am sure we're going to get more people that wander in as we go. That's usually how it works. This is our core starter group, uh, and the uh, the rest will trickle in as we go, and I will say hello as we go. All right, so we are going to start with Barlow Keep. He last time talked to us about someone else's game, and this time he is here to talk to us about his upcoming creation that he himself is working on. So take it away.
Thank you. Well, it is a creation. It's something. So to really, and I'm gonna go all the way back to really explain what this is and how it came to be. I have to start with a bit of my gaming history. So we started, as many do, playing high fantasy. So we played Pathfinder 1E. That was our jam for the longest time, and we really liked the crunch. And as time went on, after we finished a 2 year campaign, we were kind of like doing one shots from different games, trying things out. And at one point, we stumbled upon Call of Cthulhu, and it was just a huge shift. I know that I noticed that all of the players were playing differently. Now everyone was in a very different mode when it comes to roleplay. So yeah, we played a bunch of one shots. We played a campaign, and then we wanted to find something else. And our idea was, well, a lot of people that we hang out with didn't really dig the high fantasy stuff, but when we went like closer to our time, people became more interesting, and the horror aspect, the atmosphere, the build up, it was something that was really fun for people. So to get my wife to play, for example, I had to run Call of Cthulhu Adventures. And yeah, at one point we stumbled upon Cult, and I read the book, had opinions on it. I did a video that for some reason got 10,000 views, the only video that
This is
is
this is how
successful.
this is how I found him. By the way, was his cult
It's
video.
well, my outlook on it was very different than a lot of people had experience with it, because I read the core rules and I found something very interesting inside, like this dark, nostalgic, interesting feeling. But then I checked the modules, and most of the ones I figured out later that it's just the ones that I first found, but a lot of things are very oriented towards shock value. Like it's a very dark game. It's those topics are very sensitive, and when you start playing it, I as a GM didn't enjoy what it offered through the modules. So I tried some homebrew and started developing my own world that is like an alternate history of Serbia, basically, so that those people that get immersed in the game when it's closer to our world can enjoy it more. And I wanted to sprinkle a little bit of that interesting, dark, nostalgic, almost cryptic feeling into it. So at one point, I was designing campaign that was supposed to be just that, and I was in the middle of like, should I run it in the Call of Cthulhu system? It's very crunchy. It has a lot of numbers. If you ever seen a Call of Cthulhu spreadsheet, it's sorry, character sheet. You see, I got it confused because that character sheet really looks like a spreadsheet. I mean, I'm not one to talk. I like Pathfinder 1E, and it's also like that, but for a lot of newcomers it was confusing. And then Cult is based on the Powered by the Apocalypse system, which is, I mean, I would say, uh, the complete opposite of the Call of Cthulhu system. So you can resolve multiple actions with just one die roll. You have maybe like 5 6 numbers on the character sheet, and that's it. So that felt too rules light to me, and we wanted something in the middle. And first, we started playing that campaign in Call of Cthulhu, or Cthulhu Eternal is, I think, like an open source version with some rules changed. Delta Green originated from that, I think, or it was the other way around. I'm not sure. But we started with that. Then we started to combine some skills and reduced it to something else. And I don't know. At one point, we just sat down, me and one of the players, and started designing something from scratch. And the first question for us was, okay, what do we enjoy from the modern world? And our game ended up being set in 2055. But what do we enjoy about our world? What do we think is scary? And what do we enjoy about horror and like gaming in general? And we came to the conclusion that the perfect campaign for us is the one that has sort of some psychological horror, like looming underneath everything. Then there is something to break the tension, some mundane stuff like interacting with some bonds or like people in the world, just having going with your normal day. And the third thing is action. We wanted some thriller action. Why would a campaign only have horror if it can have horror on one session, then maybe the next one is a bit more action based, and you have like that break of momentum where you do like things in your daily life. And to really achieve that horror, we asked, okay, for us in Call of Cthulhu, the moment where you start the game up until the moment that you figure out what it is you're up against is where the tension is the best. The feeling is just right. And as soon as you give your enemy a stat block, you have kind of changed the genre of the game. That's I sound like a broken record. I talk about this in a lot of my videos and streams as well, but you change the genre of the games. And that is fine, but we wanted to have a bit more control over that. So our idea was there is no bestiary. We are gonna create something that is more like codex of strange things that are happening. That is going to be very inspired by, for example, SCPs, if you've heard of that. Also, like liminal spaces, backrooms. This interesting trend of like post-ironic memes that is circling around the internet that invokes that feeling of like unease, something that is really strange and something is off, is paired with something that is common and like seen in the like everyday life. So we started thinking about it, and our first idea was there is a higher power, something, and we cannot really define what it is and why people are drawn to this dark, interesting thing. And we called it the void because when we wrote down all the skills, the one that was missing, aspects, and the one that was missing was like a blank place in the page. So we called it void. And we asked people, what is void for you? And as we gathered data, we figured out, okay, so it would be very cool to have a game where that looming interesting like almost a parallel to the Cthulhu mythos or the other side of the Elysium cult um, would be something that you build as a game master for your game. So void is pretty much a higher power that you define as the GM, and that in a way defines your genre and the way that things are scary in the game. And some questions that we would ask is, okay, is the void sentient? Is it evil? If you say it's evil, then it's pretty easy to say, okay, it's a dark force. But if you say it's not evil, well, then it can be also good. So how does that manifest in the world? Also, is it omnipresent? Is it aware that it's in the book? Like, does it somehow know that it exists in a book? And this is something that we also toyed with. Like, if we call it a higher power, then you can also look at it from the point of view of the players are a higher power of their characters, and the GM is a higher power of all of that. And we circle back to rolling the dice, which is a higher power for us all. So the interesting thing is, like, isn't it scary to assume that you have created this NPC all their life, their memories, just for them to be used as something to manipulate the emotions of the players? For example, something bad happens to them. And yeah, then we ask, okay, is void tied to human emotions and thoughts? That is also one of the questions. And with these, you can kind of model other scary things from other games. If you say it's sentient, if you say it's omnipresent, you have created a godlike being. But if you say it's not sentient, maybe you answer the question, is it made by humans? Like, yes, and you say it's tied to human emotions and thoughts, then you have created something similar to what what makes cult scary. And how does this manifest in the world? Well, we say that some people, locations, and events are void touched. This means that they have been slightly altered to be slightly paranormal. And now, I mean by that is, let's say you have a void touched person. He might be bending space around him or causing illusions, or maybe we have one guy that uh, when he cries, his tears rearrange the like land around him. And now we're back to, okay, but those people can be somewhat categorized as monsters in the bestiary. They're just of human form, but they have interesting abilities. And I would say that the most of the game when you play a campaign is your players going through the aftermath of something that happened with these forces. So they're like a storytelling tool that you use to craft the world in the aftermath of the influence of the void touched people or places. And when I say places, one good example of a void touched place would be an Infinite IKEA SCP. It's something that I've seen online. It was viral for a time. Basically, an IKEA that you go inside and you get lost in all the fake rooms. At one point, you figure out that you can't find anyone and you're in an infinite IKEA and strange things are happening there. So our idea is to take all this philosophy and somehow uh, make an atmosphere that is handcrafted for the campaign and still feels fresh every time, because you can really dial down the paranormal and supernatural and say this is a very grounded campaign, or you can go wild and have some very interesting things happen. So that is the philosophy of what is scary. We did develop a world while playing. We played for a long time in this setting. It is inspired by the city I live in, so the architecture and everything is inspired by that, and also how people behave in a way. And when it comes to technology, this is not cyberpunk. It's not sci-fi. It's more like our time, but slightly into the future. And we try to imagine where the interesting trends of today would be in that time. What happens with smartphones, how they develop, what happens with AI. It's a big thing now, so we can expect it becoming even more crazy in those times. What happens with self-driving cars? We want to imagine that they're possible and that they're coming, but all of these questions we try to ask ourselves and then build it in an interesting way that is adjacent to where we come from, because there is not many games that are inspired by like our culture. There are games that are inspired by European culture, but we are on the Balkans. We have a bit of a different style for everything. Even a lot of fantasy games are inspired by Germanic architecture and like Gothic times, and we just didn't have those periods in Serbia. So yeah, Redmark is in a nutshell modern psychological horror slash thriller, rules light ish TTRPG, and yeah, it is designed to be pretty modular, so all of the rules can be like extracted from the game, combined. We really wanted that to be the thing, and everything revolves on around this core system of 6 skills and 6 aspects. Now, oh, all good. So this is kind of the DNA of the game. If you look at, I don't have the character sheet. That would be really cool to show you. But we basically have like 6 numbers on one side and 6 numbers on the other, and we wanted to compress all the actions that the player can make into these skills and aspects. And combining them, you actually see what you're gonna roll to see if you succeed or not. Our skills are force, move, shape, adapt, control, and sense. And yes, they are very broad, and they answer the question of what you're trying to do. And then you have aspects that are industry, nature, science, social, society, spirituality, and void. And void in this sense is it's tied to some other mechanics, but it's for those who have played Call of Cthulhu, it's basically Cthulhu Mythos, but as its own like domain of influence. This is very similar to, and the only game I think I've seen does something very similar is Heart City Beneath. They have skills and domains, but for me personally, I see them working in their setting, but I don't see it working in something like this. So we really started from that idea, and then it just spiraled out into something completely differently. As I always say, like when we compare like mechanics and everything, we're all cooking with same ingredients, but at the end of the day, we never make the same meal twice. So the exact same meal, right? Um, so skills are it's a roll under system, so skills are going from 0 to 100, where a normal person basically caps at 70%, and then you have aspects that are also dice that you roll to decrease this. The idea is that of course whenever you come to a place where you need a roll, you can either have the GM propose what is going to be rolled, or players like frame their action in a way so that certain skills and aspects are picked, and you can combine up to two aspects. So for example, if you're trying to open a industrial warehouse door, you might roll force, and because it's an industrial place, you would roll force industry. And then if you are leveraging some form of, like, I don't know, you have a crowbar and you remember how you would position it to get the most leverage, you could argue that you can use science as well. Now, we are not trying to be very specific, and like, we don't want the skills to be something that you really debate that much. We want you to constantly think what you're doing. And one like rule of thumb that we have around the table is not to use the name of the skill as a verb, like to describe what you're doing with it. Like, I want to control this. No, you have to describe like your action, and then we will propose what to roll. And at one point, it's interesting because you have some actions that can fall under multiple different skills. But as you're playing with the same group, you develop this idea of like, it becomes like a language thing. The skill starts to get boundaries around it, and then you know what you should roll. And after you have reached that point, one thing that we didn't really design for, but we figured out is happening now, like an emergent thing, is that players can then sometimes say what they want to roll to communicate intent to the game master better. For example, if you're hiding in the bushes and looking at a tribe in a jungle, you can roll sense nature society, or you can roll sense industry, and you have kind of like shown the GM, okay, I'm more interested into their social structure, or I'm more interested into their like tools and like what are their buildings like, and all that stuff. So that is the core system, and from that we wanted to make everything else. One thing is that you have a character creation, like character generation system that also pairs skills and aspects, and then you can see, like, for example, I don't remember them very well, but let's say you have force and you have spirituality. You might get a monk, or you have adapt, which is like a stealthy type of skill, and you pair it with not sure, but you pair it with one skill, you would get like a trickster, for example. It's a point by system, so you allocate your points into your skills and into your aspects. Its character creation takes very little time, and you're pretty much done in like 10 minutes. Other than that, we have a mechanic that is inspired very much by Sanity from Call of Cthulhu. It's very fun when players are in like an action scene, something is happening, tension is high. Everyone here has very little hit points. I think like an average person has 10 hit points, and the average gun deals 1d6 damage. So yeah, it's it's a tactical one. So um, it is very fun when players are a bit over their head in action and everything, and like characters start to snap, and they have to role play some additional like things, like them going crazy in a way. That just adds to the whole scene. And also there is a way to calm someone down, so it becomes also a tactical thing. The way that works, I don't want to go too deep into it because there's a lot to say there, but basically you have your composure meter, and as it depletes, it will come to a breaking point. When you come to the breaking point, you get a trigger. Now, that is one part of the story. If you go to zero composure, you're completely lost. The GM takes control of your character. But
Can
uh,
I ask you a quick question?
absolutely, yeah.
So like in the original Vampire, I think there was a point where you would sort of like lose all of your humanity and the GM would take over and you couldn't use it as a PC anymore. Are we talking that level of snapping, or are we talking it's a temporary thing?
If you come to zero composure, yes, that is what's going to happen. But if you just reach the breaking point, and there are ways to like refill this meter, so it's not like you're permanently losing something and it's like a ticking timer till you're like gone. But if you reach zero, you lose the character. It like reaching zero hit points in a way, but
Mhm.
more interesting. Um,
It's like
when it
mental death instead of physical death.
pretty much, but it's cool because you can still play around with this character as an NPC. Maybe they have maybe they come back completely insane, but with some insight that can help the players. Maybe they redeem themselves. You can talk to the player like between sessions and figure out what their idea is, how that can like unravel, and it can be pretty interesting. Players are mostly open to like getting their feedback into it when they have already lost the character. Like it continues being relevant. But yeah, when you reach the breaking point, you get triggers, and triggers are story of their own. Basically, triggers can be anything that the players and the GM think is like a dominant thing that caused the composure lost. For example, if you are in a room with a lot of mirrors and something happens and you lose enough composure to hit the breaking point, you would maybe get a mirror as your trigger.
So it isn't
So
necessarily something that had to do with the breaking point. Like sort of like I remember there's a spot from a story where this couple goes out for ice cream and they see someone hit by a car and they say, I'm never eating ice cream again. The ice
pretty
cream
much
didn't
you
have
can play
anything to
around
do
with it.
with.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a creative thing. It is something that you, of course, as GM, you have to worry about. Well, I'm not gonna say your trigger is something that you can see on every corner because that will be too much. Maybe it could be interesting for like a one shot where you really want to push the boundary. But I would say that a trigger like that should be a lower level trigger. And yeah, triggers have levels. And one way of curing them is if your companions help you out through it that many times. So when a trigger happens, you have been exposed to it, you get a breakdown. Breakdown comes in three flavors: level 1, level 2, level 3. If you have a breakdown during a breakdown, it just levels up. The duration stays the same until you rest or someone helps you. And breakdowns are also tied to our skills and aspects in a way. So you would take the dominant aspect of this scene. If you're in nature, that would be nature. If you're in the city, that could be industry, or play around with that. And you will roll a d6 to select one of the skills, and through that skill and that aspect, it's just some insight for you to see how you're gonna role play, like slipping from your mental stability. And it is supposed to be vague because some people feel more comfortable playing crazy people, others less, and that should be okay. I had a problem with Call of Cthulhu, for example. There is a huge list of phobias, manias, all that stuff. It's hard for some people to really try to simulate that in a way. Some don't feel comfortable. So we said, okay, if you roll force and you're the industry aspect, you role play like being maybe violent towards technology, towards industrial things, or you're just agitated by it. Maybe everyone that talks on the phone is just very irritating to you, or you just go around and break windshields. Like, yeah, it's up to you to figure out how you want to pull that off. But when you get more triggers, that this becomes more complicated. So you might get a trigger activated while you have a breakdown, so you would go to level 2. In the level 2, the GM can once per scene say, okay, you really want to open that door, you go and open that door, and it's like intrusive thoughts. So to battle that, you can bargain with the GM, you can give 1 composure or 1 luck point just to pay the intrusive thoughts away. And at level 3, you cannot do this bargaining anymore. You have to comply with those intrusive thoughts. So I've seen groups that really adore this system, this composure system, and I've seen groups that really avoid using it, and that's completely fine. The rest of the game functions as intended. As I said, you choose your higher power, you choose how dark you want it to be. You can go with just action and still enjoy it very much. For example, we swapped out Void for something else in one campaign that we're running right now. It's a medieval low fantasy campaign. We've kept the concept of the higher power and everything, but we swapped out Void. And now in that world, composure doesn't play the same role. Like it would have to be something much bigger to lose the same amount of composure. So I keep it just as a tool. Someday I might use it for a very specific situation, but it's not something that I have to use for every game. And
you have a question from the chat, and we are kind of coming up on time if everybody's going to get a chance here. So
I also have a question.
Okay, well, let's do it. Raise our heads first. How friendly is the game for newbies? I've played like 3 sessions ever.
That's the big thing that I'm really proud of. It's really easy because you kind of know after you have rolled a couple of dice, you know what you're rolling for. And it is so easy for character creation. One of the things that really kept me from starting, like my first game ever, I had a friend that is a game master, and he was like really pushing Pathfinder as our game, and character creation just took an hour and a half, and it was not really easy for me to work that into my schedule and everything. So I think from character creation through the rules, it is very beginner friendly.
It sounds like there might be a lot of work, like moving parts, until people got used to it.
Definitely from the game master part, I would say. But for the players, I've had more than 10 people that never played TTRPGs come and just jump in, and they really got a hang of it quickly. So I think for the game master, it is the question of, okay, now at one point you will see that everything can be described through control. So you have to learn to ask another question to really see how they're controlling. Oh, I want to control my balance on this rope, so I want to roll control. Well, how do you balance? Well, I move my arms, I try to, and there's move. Like, you have to kind of fish out what the real action is. But from the player's point of view, I think it's pretty easy to jump into.
Sort of like when you ask somebody to make coffee, and they're just like, you put the water in the pot, you put the coffee in the pot, you hit the button. Right. In fact, there's something. So I once had to learn how to teach clients how to make coffee if they've never ever made coffee, and it's something like 89 different steps to make coffee. You really have to. Yeah, you really have to be like very self-aware as to. Chris, what was your question?
So you're talking about you didn't want your triggers to be something that's so common that they just run into it all the time. Could you mechanically, could you say, I'm going to pick something that maybe is common, and maybe it doesn't trigger me every time I run into it, but maybe that thing in combination with something else sets off a trigger? Is it fluid enough to be able to kind of do that sort of?
Definitely. We have a governing stat that is called, so we have something that's like will saves, that is mental toughness, and we have physical toughness. And you can for sure say that a trigger only triggers if you pass if you fail the mental toughness roll. So you can hack it together, yeah. So that's a good thing to have in the
That's
PM
super cool.
we're trying to really, in the GM guide, put all the thinking behind these moving parts. So when you change something, you know what you're changing. So this is, I'm just, I love those things. So I want to write as much of it as possible, but like condense it enough so it's not like a 500-page book for sure. And how much time do I have left? I would like to mention one more thing. I can probably cram it into a couple of sentences.
Sure, go ahead.
So one thing that is very interesting and that I can see a lot of debate going around it is our conflicts or combat, how initiative functions. So basically, people are split into factions, and inside a faction, you have some actions that are instincts and some that are commitments. Instincts are like movement, free actions, helping someone, things that are very fast and are not very, their outcome is not that important. For example, anything that lasts longer and is impactful is a commitment. Inside your faction, you decide who is gonna do the commitment, and if that commitment passes, another player from that faction can do a commitment. If it fails, then the next faction goes. I've heard some games that have been released recently are doing the similar thing, but I think we have covered a lot of edge cases because we found out a way to support infinite amount of factions. And the cool thing here is that the GM can decide to, for example, you have allied NPCs. If you want them to be just in the background, you put them in the same faction as the players. If you want them to get more screen time, and this is something that we really play around with, like the camera, we really call it the camera. And if you want more screen time, you would put them in their own faction. So that is the most, like, the simplest explanation of it. There's more to it, but I don't want to take more time with it. The last thing I would say is the quick start. Well, it's like a little demo of the game is coming out on June 2nd. It will be available on our Discord, Barlowkeep Discord, or you can go to redmark.rs and sign up for the newsletter. Through that newsletter and on Discord, I will be releasing a sample adventure in about a week after the quick start is out, and then after that, I will be adding like a one-page document, like explaining more about character creation and like all those things. And there will be videos on my channel going over all those things, so that people can just, for those that don't want to read, can just look at the video and know everything that they have to run the game. And the quick start is formatted more like a cheat sheet. So for every mechanic, you have a lot of flowcharts, a lot of art, and it should, at the end of the day, be like a reference for the game master while running the game. And that's everything I had to say.
Okay. Any more questions from the panel or the chat?
I'm very excited to check this game out now.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Congrats
So-
on putting that together.
So, complete disclosure, I got to edit the quick start rules, so I have had a sneak peek. So I am eagerly awaiting further development. So, all right, BMAC or
Wonderful.
Brett. I'm sorry, which do you prefer?
Either one. BMAC's just my online screen name. Brett's my real name.
I have a faulty memory. I can remember one name. That's it.
Well, then take your pick. Do the one in parentheses or the one outside of it. No worries. I just need, no kidding, 15 seconds. I will be right back. I'm going to be using some props, and I forgot one thing. That's just like 10 feet
All
away.
right.
Be right back.
So,
Oh, props! I had a
who has-
prop. Wait,
all right.
wait,
Well,
wait.
show us the prop while you're.
This is the front cover on a piece of cardboard. It was used as a prop in one of the videos. I still don't have a better thing to show. It's not going to be A5 format. It's going to be bigger, like Index Card RPG size when the book is ready. But yeah, this is the cover.
That's so cool.
I remember seeing that design when it was in development. Yeah. It's a
The
great
highlight
design.
of my promotional material is a cardboard with a sticker on it.
Who did the artwork for your cover?
A local artist from Serbia.
Nice.
So I happen to know a couple of people looking for similar styles of art. So if your artist wants to hit up the Discord, I'll introduce people around.
Sure thing.
That's the great fun about editing, is that every so often someone says, "Hey, do you know somebody who does this?" And I'm always like, "No, but I can. I know. I know someone who will know someone." So, all right. So special effects. Have at.
So once again, I'm Brett, and I'm going to start with a little bit of a preamble as well. In that, I've been in the hobby for, like I said, about 17 years, and I started taking it more seriously, during the pandemic and after coming out of the pandemic. But my habit was I would just voraciously find new games, get really excited about them, read all about them, listen to actual plays about them, and I'd get real excited to the point where I would plan out like an initial session where I'm going to give it a test drive and I'll run it for my friends, and we'll schedule the session. And I'll be like, great, that's awesome. And we'll run the session and my friends enjoy themselves. And we play it once. And then by the time we're already done with that first session, I've found something else and I've moved on. Right. And so I kept beating myself up about like not having follow through, about not like having the chops to run more like long form continuous campaigns for my friends, to the point where I owned like all these game books that I basically only played like one time each or so. And so coming out of COVID, I had just finished playing in an online campaign. It was like the longest campaign I'd ever played in of anything. It was Burning Wheel, and had a good time with it. Also, a lot of frustrating times with it. It's a pretty complicated system, and I was just eager to get some gaming in. But I decided to set my expectations for myself just a lot lower. I said, you know what? My only goal right now is I just want to play. Like whether it's a one shot, whether it's for 10 minutes with a complete stranger or for several hours with some good friends, like I just want to play. And so I tried to find my way towards games that are easier to get off the ground running, right out of the gate. And one that stuck out to me and has stayed with me for probably 5 years now is this wonderful game called Troika. Troika is a science fantasy role playing game published by the Melsonian Arts Council and written by Daniel Sell. And it falls into the family of what's known as the old school Renaissance, OSR, except it's not an old edition of D&D that's been reprinted. It instead is heavily inspired by these old adventure books from the UK called Fighting Fantasy, where you would create a character on a piece of paper with just like a couple of stats, and then it was a choose your own adventure book where you would get into fights with monsters and, choose the wrong path down a dungeon and die immediately, and then you'd have to start the book all over, or just cheat and find the right way through the dungeon and flip through the book, etc. The creator of the game, Daniel Sell, was inspired by those rules and found them to be suitable enough to create this really interesting, cool, multiversal adventure game. I'll read the back of the book here, where it says, you and your cosmopolitan group of fellow travelers explore the ends of the multiverse. You will fly on mystic barges, help dying gods, solve confounding crimes, plunder dead worlds, and meet strange and wonderful people. And I think my favorite part about Troika, more than its rules, more than any other element about it, is just the prose. I think that's an element of games and game design that isn't talked about often enough. I think we're so rules obsessed in this hobby because they're fun. It's fun to learn new rules and to master a system. And oftentimes we'll just completely ignore reading entire chapters about adventures or in-game fiction or things like that, which are meant to sort of spark your imagination just as much as a piece of art is supposed to.
Could I ask? Can I ask you to hold the cover up? Just I'm gonna blow you up so that everybody can see it.
Don't blow me up. I'm fragile. I'm just kidding.
Ant-Man style.
No, I'm joking. I know.
Oh, that's cool art. That is
Oh yeah, so this is the cover.
somehow
This is
that is
the
somehow not what I expected based on the website.
This is the soft cover edition, and it has a whole bunch of varying art styles depending on which specific adventure or product you're going for. Again, this is an adventure game set in a vast multiverse. Troika is the name of the infinite multiversal city that many of the adventures take place in, or your characters, happen to be from there, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also gonna just read because I love the prose so much. I'm gonna read this first page of the game, so bear with me here. You are reading a tabletop role-playing game in which one player takes the part of the games master, prepares the world, and controls the people and peril in that world, while the other players create characters on a journey through that same world. You now have the context and key terms to explore the medium independently, and nothing I say here can fully instruct you on what is a deep and rich form of entertainment on par with cinema or fly fishing. Treat it as you would any new hobby. Beyond that, what you have here is Troika, a science fantasy RPG in which players travel by eldritch portal and non-Euclidean labyrinth and golden-sailed barge between the uncountable crystal spheres strung delicately across the hump-backed sky. What you encounter on those spheres and in those liminal places is anybody's guess. I wouldn't presume to tell you. Though inside this book you will find people and artifacts from these worlds which will suggest the shape of things. The adventure and wonder are in the gaps. Your game is defined by the ways in which you fill them. And it's just such a wonderful beginning intro to a game. It's concise, yet also just so evocative. What is a humpbacked sky? What is a crystal sphere? What do any of these words mean? And many times you'll be flipping through this book and see terms being introduced that are never explained later again. And I totally understand how that can be off-putting to some people. A lot of people like to know as much information as humanly possible before diving into either playing or running a game. But I think this game really trusts you, the reader, you, the game master, you, the player, to come up with explanations for the unexplainable that is introduced in this game. How I like to introduce it to people when I'm running a one-shot of it is nothing in this game, nothing in this world makes sense until we make sense of it together. You completely randomize a character when you create a character. You do 3 simple stats, and I brought a character sheet as a prop here. You've got skill, stamina, and luck, just like the Fighting Fantasy game books if you ever check those out. It's very straightforward, and then here you've got an area to put advanced skills, such as things like swimming or holding your breath, or even more strange things like, let me see if I can find an example here. There's also vengeance. It's one of the backgrounds gives you the skill vengeance. When does that come up into play? How do you utilize the skill vengeance? And just a little area to put your weapons, little area to put your possessions. This is not even the official character sheet, by the way. This just happens to be my favorite. There's a handful of fan-made character sheets throughout the Troika-verse or the Troika community, which is brings me to my next point, which is Troika is so wonderful in part because of its amazing, the amazing creativity it pulls into its community. There are a ludicrous number of really high quality fan-made, third-party products for Troika. Some of them are small little zines. Some of them are entire spin-off games, and some are just really beautiful hardcover books. And again, it's a multiverse, so anything can fit into the game of Troika that you can think of. People use Troika to do kind of more horror-inspired dungeon crawling. Some people use it to play more light-hearted, sort of whimsical adventuring. This is a game that is made by a fan. It's called Bones Deep. It utilizes all of the same rules as Troika, except instead of playing as cosmopolitan, multiversal weirdos, you play as skeletons at the bottom of the sea, and this kind of has more horror elements to it. Meanwhile, this next book is published by Melsonian Arts Council, the people who made Troika, and it's what's known as kind of like a sphere. A sphere is basically the same thing as like a plane in D&D or a world. It's just a crystal sphere in which it has a bunch of interesting setting elements and ways to make your character, new backgrounds to play as, and some adventure material, etc. You play as some cute little dinosaurs. This is Permian nations, the very pretty Paleozoic pals. So it's just got a wide variety of material to help inspire your particular game. Any questions thus far? So far, no. Okay. I am Monica.
I do have one. I am simply trying to figure out. It's a question in relation to this and something else, and I'm busy trying to find the something else so I get the names right.
Sure. Yeah. No worries. So in Troika, like I said, you randomly generate a character, and I'll briefly explain how you play it. You only need 2d6 to play Troika. It's a very simple game. You are basically using your 2d6 in one of a couple of different ways. When you're using a skill to do a skill test and it's uncontested, you're just trying to impact the world in some way without someone trying to stop you. You're going to roll 2d6 and you're going to try to get equal to or under your relevant either advanced skill or just your base skill if you don't have the relevant advanced skill. So for example, if you get the background, I'll pick a kind of normal sounding background here. You can roll up as a burglar and you get a 2 in sneak. So you would take that 2 in sneak and add that to whatever your base skill is, which is usually either 4, 5, or 6. Let's pretend it's 5. So you take the 2 in sneak, add it to your 5 base skill, and that's what you're trying to get when you roll 2d6 in order to pass a sneak test, right? So I'm going to roll these dice. I rolled an 8, so that would be a failure, right? In terms of people that get real into the nitty-gritty of the math of games, Troika does tend to err on the side of failure because failure is interesting. It's fun. It leads to more interesting game scenarios. And also, in the OSR, there's sort of a commonly accepted philosophy that you can negotiate your way out of dice rolls with clever play and talking things out with the game master, right? If my character is an acrobat and I'm trying to tie a rope to a tree, I feel like that shouldn't necessitate a roll, right? Unless there's like a dragon flying straight for me and I got to tie the rope in time, right? So there's always room to forego getting into a dice roll. But once those dice come out and the consequences of what could go wrong are discussed in advance, the player can roll those dice and and hope for a thrilling success accordingly. Let's see, some other interesting backgrounds here. There's one of my favorites is the Monkey Monger. I'll read the description of this background that you can roll randomly. Life on the wall is hard. One is never more than a few yards from an endless fall, yet those precarious villages still need to eat. This is where you come in with your edible monkeys. The distinction is purely for appeal, since all monkeys are, of course, edible. You used to spend days on end dangling your feet off the edge of the world, watching over your chittering livestock, while they scampered hither and thither. But there was no future in monkey meat. You wanted much more, and so stepped off, or you fell off. Either way, you and some unlucky monkeys are here now, and that's all that matters. It doesn't go into anything about the economy of how much you should sell your monkeys for, how much monkeys are worth. What is the wall that you come from? Not explained anywhere in the book. But by talking it out and asking questions and just creating with the people that you're playing with, you will stitch together a semblance, a small fragment of the world of Troika, at least as far as it means to your play group, right? And so that's just the beauty, is you're all of these different displaced people from across the multiverse that come together, and you go on adventures. You go on sort of picaresque adventures where you're trying to make it through places successfully. The starter adventure that comes in the book is called The Blancmange and Thistle, and it basically is what's called a hotel crawl, is what people call it. you are all the party members are given one key. You are to share a single bedroom at a hotel, and you are making your way to a rooftop party on the day of an important festival in the city. And every floor, as you make your way up to the top of the hotel, has some new interesting encounter. Some of which may or may not involve fighting, depending on how agitated the players get, and some encounters are more friendly and more just kind of more strange. And this game is just absolutely brimming with really fascinating adventures and adventure locations. Let's see. I'll talk about initiative. And by the way, I did provide some links in the private chat. Not sure if they've made their way out to the public yet, but the rules for Troika are 100% free. You can go to troikarpg.com and find the rule book there and flip through it before deciding to buy it, if that's something you'd like to do. You could admire all the art and all the beautiful writing in there. And then furthermore, there is a really awesome fan-made tool where you can randomly generate a character. I've provided a link to that as well if people want to check that out and randomly make a character, see what you come up with. But I'll talk about some of the other quirky rules of the game, notably initiative. Initiative is kind of a sticking point for people who try Troika. A lot of people either really love it or really hate it. And I think it comes with some misconceptions that lead to people not having a good time with it. But basically, the point of the initiative rules is you get a bag. Sometimes it's a deck of cards. I prefer to use a bag. And you get some multicolored tokens. I use these little gems here, some blue ones, etc. And each player picks a color, and then you put tokens into the bag for each player that is participating in the combat. And then you put in tokens for all of the enemies. I usually use red. And I put in all the tokens for the enemies, and then you're just randomly pulling out tokens from the bag. That could be a player, it could be an enemy, or it could be the end of round token, where we take all the tokens and put them back in the bag and things start over, of course removing some if anyone's died during combat. And so this could lead to scenarios where a player's token never gets pulled. And so obviously, just looking at that on paper, that could get frustrating for a playgroup. But what people don't realize is that how combat works is it's an opposed roll. So the combatants, the player character and the enemy, regardless of who tries to attack who, are both going to roll dice, and whoever succeeds on the dice roll, whoever rolls better, wins that engagement and does damage to the other party, right? So someone on the Troika Discord server likes to describe it by showing a painting of Conan the Barbarian with like 1 million enemies coming for him. And that's what it's like in Troika, where you could be getting attacked by 15 goblins at once and you don't ever get your turn, but you're still killing them left and right by succeeding in the combat rolls against them as they're coming for you. And you can choose to respond to someone attacking you in a different way as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be I'm going to do damage to them, they're going to do damage to me. It could be someone's coming to attack you and you say, oh, I want to dodge, and then that's how you decide to roll your dice, and you would add your dodge skill or whatever skill is relevant to that, right? So it's a really quirky little initiative system. I love it. I think it's really clever, and I just love any chance I get to be able to use little tactile, colorful beads and tokens. Just enhances a game experience for me personally. And, I'll go over a couple other of the things that I have sitting next to me here, but there's just so many wonderful adventures for Troika. This one right here is a detective noir adventure called The Big Squirm, in which there are these worm scarves that people, like the rich and powerful people, have become obsessed with. I think it's based on the tulip bubble that occurred in the Netherlands, I believe, back in several hundred years ago, where you've got these scarf worms that everyone has become obsessed about, and there's supposed to be a new shipment that comes in where everyone's got money bet on the futures of these scarf worms, and everyone's got a whole bunch of money riding on the arrival of this new shipment. And turns out there's actually some like evil worms that have gotten into the mix and have eaten all the supply of the scarf worms. And so a whole bunch of people are now out of money, and the player characters have to go on this kind of financial detective adventure as they discover more about who's behind all of this, what's going on here. And it's got just absolutely absurd, really creative art all throughout the book. This one is particularly written by Luke Gearing, pretty famous in the OSR scene. You've got Slate and Chalcedony. This is another really cool adventure. It's two wizard towers that are kind of standing next to each other in the middle of nowhere, and they're kind of connected at different points. And this is a more traditional dungeon crawl, but it's just got such strange, weird things going on in the towers that you can encounter and run into. This would definitely be kind of like a less kid-friendly sort of adventure with some of the things that you can find in these towers. And there's just like another piece of art right here with a orangutan attacking somebody with an axe.
It sounds like even if you don't play the game, just the source material for other games would be great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, regardless of any game, it doesn't. You should always be mining cool ideas from things, even if you don't intend on using the rules or the game system or whatever. And this has just chock full of really creative multiversal ideas. If you found yourself to be displeased with all of the Planescape stuff that they came out with for D&D 5th edition, like this would be a great source of inspiration for you to kind of add in some cool Planescape-y sort of elements to your gameplay if you're a big D&D head. Yeah.
Can I ask, being a big fan of physical media, what's the price point tend to be on most of these?
So for the core rulebook of Troika, the soft cover, it's, I believe, in like the 20s. It's definitely less than $30. But, oh yeah, I believe this is true. And I want to be clear. I am not affiliated in any way with the Melsonian Arts Council. I'm just a super fan who knows a lot about what's going on with the Melsonian Arts Council. And I believe that they are not impacted by tariffs. I believe they get their books made in, I can't remember if it's Estonia or Lithuania, one of those countries up there, maybe Latvia. They get their books published there, so they're not as impacted by a lot of the tariffs that were put on China. So a lot of their prices haven't really been inflated too much accordingly. And the core rulebook is like roughly around, any of the soft cover books that they have some soft cover adventures that I didn't bring here to show. But the core rulebook and any of the soft cover adventures tend to be somewhere in like the 20s, like 22, 25. The hardcover ones tend to run you kind of more closer to in like the 30, 35 range. And I'm just a collector. I've got a whole bunch of these, which I am using, coming from being a book buyer who rarely ever use the books. I use these all the time. And, I just went to a con over the weekend and brought a bunch of my Troika books and ran 2 sessions for some strangers and had a good time. So anyway, I think that's everything I have to say about Troika. Are there any questions or thoughts?
So go ahead. Mine was a weird story, so go ahead.
What is your favorite? Like, doesn't have to be the best, but like your specific favorite adventure or like a campaign.
I'm so glad you asked. So I'll teensy bit of preamble to that. There are, in the world of adventures, there are kind of more traditional structured adventures where you get like a map, and then the map has like adventure location numbers, and then you go through the adventure and it breaks down for you all of the different locations and like what's at S32, and then you go back to the map and figure that out. And you kind of have to do a lot of reading and prep to get the whole sense of this adventure location, right? So that's definitely one style of adventure writing. But what's popular in the Troika community that I don't really see very many other places is like specifically the Troika spheres, people coming up with like new worlds for Troika, is you get things like this. This is my favorite. It's called Testu Dinea. It's a city on the back of a giant turtle in like a big desert. And basically, like, this is it. This is the map. You have like a conceptual map of what the city of the turtle is like. This pink area is where the rich people live. This blue area is where the middle class people live, and the green areas are where like the lower class people live. And then otherwise, the Sphere book kind of breaks down for you the different factions that are present in this city. You've got the dualies, which are sort of like basically a really cool union of workers that have banded together. You've got a guild of baker assassins called the Guild of Brass and Butter, because baking has been outlawed in this world, and so anytime you see someone with a chef hat, you better get the heck out of there. And so in this particular adventure or Sphere book, there isn't like a preordained like list of encounters that the players will run into in a row. Instead, it sets everything up. It gives you like just a general brush stroke of what the city is like, and then it gives you this really awesome event table, which all kind of serve as kind of fractalized encounters, right? This is just a list of different occurrences. So just over the weekend, I set up the city. I told the players what the city was like and what sorts of things you can encounter there, all the different factions, and then I just randomly rolled a occurrence on the table, and I found, which one was it? Anyway, I rolled on this table and I got a singular occurrence that I then sort of just freestyled, like improv an adventure off of. And I would like open this book up to different pages and pull monsters and say, okay, this monster from this book shows up and now you got to deal with that. And I'd go to the items section of the book and say, okay, you run into a baker assassin and he uses an IBE, which is an improvised baker's explosive. And like the bomb goes off in the middle of the town square and now you got to deal with that. And so I would just, it sounds really chaotic, and it was to some extent, but
is it a flower bomb?
Yeah, basically. I think of it as like a croissant that explodes, is how I think I worded it back on the day. But yeah, this one's definitely my favorite. This one's written by Mark Conway, I believe his name is. Yeah, Mark Conway, and he's got some other really genius Troika supplements. There's another one called the Cerulean Curtain, where you play as people who go to the dream world and have to perform in a play that involves gladiatorial combat. Like, it's just so out there in terms of the creativity on display. I hope that answers your question.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat.
So we've been playing a lot of Shadow Dark, which is very similar, it sounds like.
Sure.
But this sounds like so Shadow Dark has got that D&D kind of base, right? How are the modules similar enough that they could easily translate? Or are the rules of Troika different enough that it would be worth trying out a new system, do you think?
I'd say play whatever system y'all are most comfortable with and excited about. I think Troika is simple enough to give it a go, but if you're loving Shadow Dark and are just looking for material to inject into Shadow Dark, I personally have not seen anyone do a conversion of like Troika monsters into Shadow Dark stats specifically. I don't know how much Shadow Dark deviates from like older editions of D&D, right? Which tend to be like the lingua franca of OSR games. But it's OSR.
Sure.
We're talking about pretty small stat blocks, all things considered.
Right.
And the Troika monsters are so dripping in flavor that you could get a lot of mileage out of them, even without like worrying too much about getting the stats exactly right. Like, for example, I'll just read one. This is the first monster entry on the in the bestiary. Alzabo, the red-furred ghoul bear, which at its shoulder stands as tall as a horse, would be a frightful creature for its appearance alone. But an Alzabo can imitate the voice of any creature it has eaten. Crying out in the night, it draws its prey from safety, typically by imitating a recently eaten family member and calling to that person's children or parents. Even if the devoured was human, and those listening know that the cry is false, the sound of a daughter you know to be deceased, scraping at your cottage door and begging to be let in from the cold, is more than most can stand. And all of the monsters have what's known as a behavior table, or a mien table, M-I-E-N. This is a really cool thing that Troika does, where you roll basically a d6 and it tells you what sorts of behaviors the monster is exhibiting. I just rolled watchful, right? So this monster is being watchful right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to, go after the party in an aggressive manner. So there's all sorts of different sorts of ways to encounter creatures in this game that aren't just see it, kill it, right? I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I would say go for it. Check it out. You can at least grab a bunch of the really cool monsters from the Troika Core rulebook for free and see about how they would play out in Shadowdark. I have personally never played Shadowdark, but I've heard nothing but good things.
And Troika is kind of on my short list of things to drag my Friday gaming group into. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now I'm really excited.
Yay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And Chris, that leaves you.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm just really excited about the games these guys have been talking about now. So,
yeah, that's been one of the downsides to this. Is, man, I have spent so much money on games recently.
Right? Oh, the list is already so long. Yeah. So my game is very, very different. In that it's a solo endeavor. So during the pandemic, we played tons of games, and it was really kind of cool in some ways because we weren't going anywhere. So we had plenty of time to, you'd get on to Zoom and you'd get on early because you didn't have to commute home from any place. And we'd play late into the night because you didn't have to drive home after the game was done. And so you kind of got that, the time that we had when we were younger, right? We had the infinite time of, it's Saturday and I can just go over to a friend's house on Saturday morning and we will play for 12 hours and then fall asleep wherever we lie and then wake up the next morning and, eat the cold pizza and play for another 6 hours before we had to get home and get ready to go to school the next day. And so it gave our group the chance to kind of immerse in the story more than we had been. Like if you've got a few hours, 2-3 hours to play, a combat, especially if you're using, at the time we were playing a lot of D&D, a D&D combat will just go forever. So you get one thing you get to do. There's no role playing in it. And then you're done for the night and you got to go home. So during the pandemic, we had, we've got a combat, but it also gave us the space to kind of flesh out characters more and have backstories and have those backstories mean something, and have interactions between the players. And those are the parts of the game. Those are the parts of role playing that I like the best. So when the pandemic ended and everybody, schedules flooded back in with the infinite things that schedules flood back in with, our time to play got much shorter. And so to kind of make up for that missing role-playing story time that I was itching for, I found solo role-playing games, solo RPGs. There's one, the first one kind of that sucked me in is a game called Void 1680 AM. In which you are playing an AM DJ, creating on the air, and you're basically creating a playlist. And the playlist is based on the cards you draw tell you what sort of song, and it gives you kind of a prompt as to the song that you would be picking to fill that particular time, that particular airtime. Which is a fun thing to do if you like making playlists. I love music and I have always loved making playlists. So I was like, this is kind of really neat. and it's just me, and I'm in my head thinking about, oh geez, who would the caller be? You have callers that call in and what their problems are, and in my head I'm thinking, what would they sound like and what would the problem be? And I actually ended up recording my first game of Void 1680, and it was a lot of fun. I'm like, that was a really good time, and I have these stories now and these people in my head. I want to do this again. And so I started playing some of these other solo games. 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a great one. This one I'm playing right now, kind of working through, is Fox Curio. Fox Curio's Floating Bookshop is another. It's like Stardew Valley esque kind of meets sort of Stardew Valley meets Redwall, I would say. And so, because it's how my brain works, and I started thinking, I wonder if I were going to create a game, a solo game, what would it be? And a friend of mine, at the same time, was kind of going through an artistic slump, and she basically challenged everybody, all of her friends, said, I'm going to send you some photos. And I want you to take these photos and I want you to create a thing. And then I want you to send that thing back to me so that I can be inspired to create other things. So she sent these photos, and the cover of the Sylvan is my rendition of one of her, come back a bit, of one of her photos. And this is actually the first copy that I ever printed. So it's not quite as vibrant as it otherwise would be, but it's this great evocative photo where she's holding this stone in front of her face. And from that, I kind of latched onto this idea of she was talking about liminal spaces, and it got me thinking about, all right, well, what if you were playing a character who can travel between worlds, and you were trying to get someplace that you can't get to yourself. You have to get somebody else to help you with that. And they're willing to help you, but they have a price that they have to pay. So how would you get money for that? And it sort of came into well, how would I create maps, and what would the stories be? And sort of this explosion of ideas came from this one photo. And so it's created this game where you're going to create, you start by creating a map, and there are basic rules for building your map. The map is made up of, there are 4 worlds in the map. Let's see if I can get like that. So you will build these 4 worlds, following the directions on the page here for each of the worlds. And each of the worlds has its own flavor, but you get to kind of decide what that means. So you're talking about the humpback skies. This is sort of similar idea here, where I've tried to give a flavor of a thing, and then let the person who's playing the game decide what that means. So if you are building in the land of the living, for example, and you have to put in an orchard, what does that mean to you? Is it an orchard with trees? Is it an orchard of stone pillars? Is it an orchard of cotton candy machines? It could be whatever it is you want your world to have in it. So each of the worlds has kind of its own flavor, and then you're creating a character. And I wish I printed out a character sheet. I wasn't thinking. You develop a character that is very heavily inspired by Jay Dragon's like Wanderhome series, or Sleepaway. Kind of the character concept is not in numbers, but in phrases, is in ideas. So there are things that can be changed about your character, and that will change, that you pay to kind of change, to be able to fix things for people. You have things about you that are unchangeable, that are things like the reason that you're trying to leave the Four Worlds and go to this other place. Your true name is something that is unchangeable, and you could decide this is what my true name is, or you could leave it vague as your true name maybe is something that is a dreamy name, for example, and not actually define what that means. And then after your character is created, you are drawing cards from a deck of cards, and each of those is attached to a story. And it's basically a story prompt, where you read the prompt and then you decide if you can help, or if you have to pass on this. Now, a lot of solo RPGs, particularly the journaling style RPGs, don't really have a mechanic for, I don't want to say they don't have mechanics. They have mechanics, but they're much more freeform and open as to what your story wants to be. So if you want your story to be, you always succeed, and oh, hey, look at that right there. Very good. There's my character sheet. Thank you. So, for example, you could have a disquieting name, and maybe you decide what that disquieting name is. Maybe you just leave it as it's disquieting. And does it come into play? It could come into play, and that's where the journaling parts of it helped. There are traits that can be lost, which are things that I guess I should start with things that help solve problems. It's right here. I did put them in this order for a reason. So as I was saying, in a lot of these games, there is no mechanic for failure necessarily. A story is more interesting if you include failures, and I'm 100% in agreement with that. I think Brett was the one that mentioned that. But there's not, if you're just telling a story, you get to tell the story however you want to. And I kind of like there to be a little bit of meat in my game, right? So when you come up with when you hit a story, you can have these things that help solve problems. You have powers, you have magic, and then you have a couple of items. And each of them has a point value for how much power is behind that. So if you had, say, a 3 of clubs, you could use one of your items, which has a value of 6. It's higher than the 3, and you could solve a problem. You would cross off whatever that item is, and then you would either find a new item down the road at there's special locations where you can replenish these things, or you get that item back, or and you can tell your story about how that happens as you go. Your power and your magic are much more powerful things and solve much bigger problems. But like I say, if you use those, you then have to go about retrieving those things to be able to use them again. And they could change as the game plays. So your character kind of takes on these new identities, these new ways of casting things. So maybe you solve a problem and your power comes from divination. Maybe you use that power and something happens in the story that you're writing based on the prompt you've read. And now you think, well, maybe my power now shifts, and it's now my power comes from enchantments. So the keywords here are there to sort of help you add flavor to your game, but the values of those are there to give it that structure it needs to say, all right, well, what happens if I've just gone through 3 encounters, and I've now used my magic, my powers, and both of my items. What am I going to do now? So at the bottom of this sheet, if you can scroll down for me, you'll see that there are traits that can be lost and things that change over time. So your traits that can be lost are kind of the flavor that you give to your character as you're experiencing, as you're going through and solving these problems that people have. And it kind of gives you an idea of maybe how you could phrase things, how you could interact with the world around you. So if you're playing a character that seems to the outside world to be very dashing, maybe your interactions with the characters that you meet in the stories is all very swashbuckling and charming and things like that. But if you ever get to a point where you need to have a power to solve a thing and you don't have that power, you can lose one of these traits that can be lost. And if you've played the game, it's called Wickedness, inspired this kind of mechanic, which if you haven't played Wickedness, it's a fantastic game for 3 people. Highly recommend it. It's one of those great get together on a cold winter night with your hot cocoa or beverage of choice and create the story together. But basically how this works is if you've used all of your powers and you need to fix something and you can't, you could end up losing these traits that make up who you are. So if you were a dashing person at first and now you've lost that trait, how does that affect how your character behaves now that they're no longer dashing? Now, traits that can be lost can be brought back. However, if they are used twice, those traits are gone forever. So maybe you were dashing once and something happened and now you're a little less dashing. Maybe you're not feeling as confident as you once were. And maybe you lose that again. Now that's a thing that you can't ever get back. What does that mean for your character? What does that mean to the story you're telling? How does there's nothing dashing about you. Do you turn into a monster? Have you become a coward? So it's all kind of and in your head as you're playing the game and as you're interacting.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Did you ever read And the Blade Itself, Joe Abercrombie?
I don't think I have. No.
Too bad. It's a great book.
Well, it's Joe Abercrombie. Write that down.
It's a trilogy, actually. It starts kind of slow, but the character development is amazing. The reason I was asking is that there's a character who starts out as being good looking and a great dueler, and he's sort of like the guy all the ladies, wanna get with. And then he has his first actual battle, and his face gets all scarred up. And so now all of a sudden everybody's looking at him with pity instead of
right
thinking how great he is. So that's what I was thinking, and I wondered if that's the kind of thing that you were.
It is. So the game is is constantly in flux. So not only does your character change, but the map that you've created can also change. So by if you're not able to help with the problems that you come across in these 4 worlds, sometimes really bad stuff happens. And maybe something is maybe you're not destroyed, but something in the world is destroyed. Something maybe that was really important to you is now destroyed. And how does that affect the landscape of things? So it's constantly changing how you're thinking about what your character is, how you're thinking about what's in the world, and ultimately how you get out of the world is that the face cards are all people who want to go someplace else. And you have the ability to show them how to get from one world to the next. It's not as simple as, hopping in a plane and going to the next world. You have to follow what are called shadow paths. When you make your map, you're actually folding the map before you put anything down, to create where these shadow paths go. And so you're taking a character, you're taking one of these face card characters, and you are bringing them to a destination that they want to get to. And in doing so, if you're successful in that, you earn coins. If you can earn 6 coins, you can pay the trickster off, and the trickster will take you where you want to go, and you can resolve the story that way. If you can't pay the trickster off, you're stuck in the 4 worlds. And what does that mean for you? Do you just continue going on as you always have? Do you fade into nothingness, to be reborn again for another game somewhere down the road? Yeah, so it there are definite like mechanics. You're trying to actually accomplish a thing mechanically, and not just a story. But the story is a one of constant change, of constant evolving of these spaces that are in between places. Yeah, so that's that's the Sylvan kind of.
All right, give me just a second. There's a proper order I have to do this in because otherwise it gets really upset with me.
And weirdly enough, that you were talking about your game is this is for Andrew, about your game is a Call of Cthulhu based game. The game that I'm currently working on, another solo game, is called Last Call in Arkham, which is a Cthulian pub crawl type of thing. A little more tongue in cheek than what you've got going on, but yeah, it'll be fun.
Dead Man Walking has a question. Interesting to see how you can lose and get back personality. I may have missed it, but are these traits earned based on dice rolls or how?
So when you start the game, you are choosing your traits. You have a static set of traits that you can kind of customize based on what you're feeling like playing today. So you do lose them in order to pay to solve problems. So let me give it an example. The 3 of Spades says, for centuries, the Bonebeards have been the source of knowledge and wisdom, but recently their philosophies have begun to change in drastic ways. Who are the Bonebeards? What philosophy do they teach? And why has their immense age changed this wisdom? What changes does this threaten to bring into the world? So if you decide to help, you will draw the Pilgrim's Way, which is a road between 2 features of the world. Roads allow you to travel between places very quickly. How do you salvage the relationship between these venerable philosophers and the people they advise? If you pass, however, you destroy a landmark in this world, or you lose one of your traits. You abandon one of the things that change over time, and you select a new one. And the Bonebeard's advice causes an infidelity that leads to a destruction. What happened and what changes? So your traits, you start with the game. You start the game with traits, and as you go through these encounters, sometimes you just lose a trait because you're unable to pay the cost to help, such as in this case. So if you had no landmarks on your map yet, and landmarks happen, like I say, so for this instance, we would put in a landmark, the Pilgrim's Way. So if that road didn't exist, you had nothing to destroy in the world. You would have to lose one of your traits, and that's how those traits change. I think that answers the question. Maybe.
Dadman will have to let us know.
Okay.
So we'll give him a second to write. Anybody on the panel have any questions? Does anybody else in the chat have questions?
No questions, but I thought that sheet that we were looking at was really well put together.
No, thank you.
I'm a big sucker for, like, I think a game is only as strong as its play aids or resources, and that looked like a really good one. So
I love a good character sheet, so I really liked yours too. Is like,
well, thanks. Yeah.
God, I
it
have to go
appeals.
to the other room and get my character sheet. Be right back.
Oh, do
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real fine balance between being able to have a really good looking, interesting character sheet that isn't so busy that people have trouble with it.
And
Um,
that was a lot of playtesting through that one. I really thank my playtesters for that. Initially, the character sheet was a landscape format, and it wasn't as clean. It wasn't easy to follow. So switching it around and coming up with something that made sense visually for how to build your character really made all the difference. So I thank them a lot.
I'm a big fan of the Numenera one that turns into a trifold brochure.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
every player I've ever introduced to the game is so confused by it until I explain to them, you fold it. And they go,
Yep.
oh, that should have been really obvious. That explains why there are lines.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. We have another character sheet.
Yep. Here it is. So this part will probably go away because it's not as useful. It's like when you have any modifiers or anything, so you can just track what your skills are now, but no one uses that. So that's gonna be like taken off. And I mean, this is the earliest prototype, so probably gonna change a lot. But what is important is these two columns.
It looks
Pretty
clean.
much.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a solid foundation.
And you have like space to write stuff down here, and yeah, that's the one.
That's very cool.
I have a question for I mean, it's a question for about solo gaming in general. I've never tried it, and everything you said so far was very evocative and very cool. So I'm really tempted to try your game as the first one. So do you
Oh.
recommend it as the first one? And the second question, maybe as a sub question, is when you play a solo game, do you write the story, or is it more like in your head the whole
Ah.
time? Like,
Yep.
is it a back and forth with like writing notes, or how detailed would you go and all that?
So I may be biased, but I think the Sylvan would be an excellent first game for solo play. And as far as your journaling, it really depends on how much you want to write. There are people who play solo RPGs that write volumes. They use it as a tool to create novels, right? But you can also just do shorthand, little quick notes, so that you remember what happened, so that you can refer back to it later. One of the things I found with solo RPGs is sometimes that doesn't you have encounters in the story, and there is nothing in the story to pull you back to those encounters later. So it's not really a lot of sense to spend a lot of time writing about it, because you're never going to go back to it unless you're really inspired to write. I've tried with the Sylvan to make sure that you want to at least take some notes, so that as the game progresses, you get to a point where you really need to be able to go back and say, because there are the people that you encounter are potentially people that you've already met before, and now you've run into them again. And so now you may have this whole history with them that you've already put down, that then informs how the interaction is going to go with them when you come around to meet them again. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Very interesting. I'll have to try it out.
I hope you do. I'd like to hear what you had to think, or what you'd have to say about it.
Dadman Walking says, how long has it taken to develop these games to where they are now? Years, days, or hours? I guess that's a panel-wide question.
Months and months. So I started. My friend sent me the photos on February 10th of last year, and I worked until I finished my edits and published on December 10th of last year. And it was pretty solid year of working.
Well, for Redmark, I think it's gonna be. This is just an estimation right now. It's gonna be around year and a half total from like the idea coming to my mind to the finished product. But I was very optimistic when I first started thinking about it. I was like, well, you just write like rules and then advice. It's like writing the scripts for my videos, but just a lot of them, and then you add art on top,
Yeah.
sprinkle it with some flavor
How hard
text,
could it be?
and it turned out to be a huge undertaking, especially because I haven't written anything. I was writing code my whole life, but never a word that was meant to be read by a human. So it is very hard at the moment. I would say that for Redmark, the player guide part is done. I have the manuscript. It has to be proofread. It has to be changed, probably iterated upon, but the GM guide is about 20% done. We have a sample adventure, and that's pretty much it. Like the pre-gen system is also there somewhere inside of those. But other than that, there is a ton of things that are just ideas floating around. There is like a skeleton, but now after I started developing it in, I think it was end of November last year. So that is how far I came since November. And right now I can see for sure a year longer to have the whole product. Like I will have the manuscript and like everything, but it's just the iterating over it and editing and art. Yeah, it's an undertaking. And I would say this is a small game. Like rules wise, it will be like the rules will be the smallest part of the book, and you have the setting and everything. I would still consider it small in comparison to some other games. For example, Tales from Elsewhere is a game that a fellow friend and YouTuber is working on, and it's so much bigger. It has multiple different worlds, and the rules are really, really, really like thorough. So I think Peter mentioned that he thinks a game like that would take like maybe 3 or 4, even more years of development, which is understandable. I think even when we look at like board games or computer games, even like big games take multiple years, smaller ones take about a year because you have to test a lot of things.
Yep.
Yay, editing.
I will say, so this, I do have physical copy. I initially intended it to be digital only, but I like being able to touch things. And then I discovered, yeah, right. Like then I discovered how expensive it is to print things, and that it was cheaper for me to buy a printer and a really good paper cutter and print them myself. So, if you want to make games, it takes time, but you can absolutely get yourself a printer, make your game, print it out yourself.
So Troll Lord Games, I can talk honest, is I mean, they're a small game publisher, but like they're definitely known. Their response to not being able to get stuff into the country in time after COVID was to just go out and build their entire, like their own printing press, basically. So other than their hardcover stuff, they now do everything in house, and their hardcovers they do at like a small business not that far away. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
My big problem is that even if I print things in Serbia, getting them out of Serbia is pretty problematic because of customs. Customs are so ludicrously high for some things that it just isn't worth it. So I have to think about like printing it outside Serbian borders.
I was going to say that's when you just like send you do business with a company that's already in the country you want to be.
Yeah.
I don't work for them. I don't get paid to say this, but I've found a lot of success making like demo copies of things. Like I find myself finding PDFs of games that are no longer in print and then printing them out through like a print on demand service.
Yep.
And my favorite of those is Lulu.com. They have some really cool options, way better quality than DriveThruRPG in my personal
Yeah,
opinion.
they've really been getting a lot of attention lately. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And like some pretty popular games that have been coming up are being printed through Lulu. I think Cairn is a pretty famous game in the OSR scene right now, and that you can get all the books for that through Lulu. Anyway, yeah, just food for thought.
Amazing.
So I want to make sure everybody has time to plug their stuff. We are at 9 minutes of, which is a little later than usual, but that's all right. If we're 5 minutes over, hopefully nobody will keel over on me. Barlow Keep, you want to tell us about your YouTube channel and all your things and where we can find you and when we can find you?
So YouTube channel, Barlow Keep is the name of the channel, and it is basically just thought-provoking takes on tabletop RPGs. So you can find anything from, some that were more interesting. The origin of vampires and vampire as a word from Slavic mythology. That was the latest one, documentary style
That was a
one
great
going
video.
through.
I loved that.
Thank you. I waited for a long time to make that one. Also, I ask questions about how people actually visualize things, how certain things make you feel, even how food and coffee and maybe other substances influence your gaming table, do's and don'ts of all different things. So yeah, I don't have a proper elevator pitch for the channel, but if you want stuff that is like that I think I haven't seen before and I have for some reason opinions on, that is what you can find there. So Barlow Keep is the name of the channel. I try to upload weekly, but now as Redmark is cooking, there will be a lot more things on that game. And if you want to get the quick start as soon as it arrives and get some follow-up material, redmark.rs is the website. Scroll all the way down, there is like a little text box that you can leave your email at, and I promise I won't spam you. Just when I have something really cool, that's when I will be using it. Other than that, Barlow Keep Discord server, as I said, is the place where you can find me all the time. It is a very small community right now, but I'm checking it regularly. And yeah, my time zone is, well, I think, what is the difference between us? Like 6 hours, maybe more. But yeah, I'm anytime in Europe. That's if Europe is awake, I'm awake. That's
Though, as I recall, you once said, "Do you ever sleep? I feel like you're always." It's like
yes,
4 o'clock.
yes.
4 o'clock in the morning your time, isn't it?
Yeah. Because whatever I write to you, you always respond. There is like
All right. BMAC, is there anything that you want to plug other than the actual website? Is there anything you've got going on or that you're doing? Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
I sure was. I don't really have any socials or a media platform to call my own. I go back and forth on whether or not I should. I just run games a lot down here in the San Diego community. If you ever find yourself here, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty. I talk a lot on the Melsonia Discord server for Troika. So you'll see me there, I'm sure. But otherwise, just do me a favor and go out there and like have fun with your friends. That's like the absolute last thing that corporations want us to do. So go do that. That's the best way to resist things and build community in this day and age. Is my 2 cents.
Play games. All right. And Chris.
So you can find the Sylvan Scrap Yarn Games, scrapyarngames.com. I'm also on itch.io, which is a great publishing service for very small game developers. If you want a hard copy of this, you can get it at Crossroad Games, which is my game store here in Standish. Or I mail them out as well.
I was going to say, do you do mail order?
I do mail order. I do mail art, and then later this year, keep an eye out. Last Call on Arkham is coming. It's gonna be a good time, a lot of fun.
We'll have to find a way to get that here somehow.
You and I should talk after.
Absolutely.
If he can, does he have enough coffee?
Oof. Look, it's 2 a.m. here.
Oh,
not enough coffee. Not enough coffee in the world. All right, so I am the Eclectic Goat. Tomorrow I will be on Jack Tarlad's channel from 5. I have to look at my calendar for this because tomorrow's very busy. So from 5 to 7, I am in Jack Tarlad's Read and Roll. And then from 8 to 10, I am on Roman's channel. And I think we're just talking about random stuff that comes up in the entertainment world. This weekend, as always, I usually am shut down on Saturdays and Sundays. However, we have the Fiber Frolic this weekend, so I may be posting lots of, cute pictures of things.
Lots of yarn.
Lots of yarn. And the things that make yarn, and the people that make yarn.
Yeah.
Not scrap yarn, even. Next week, we'll be back with Slice and Dice. In case anyone has missed it, as of next week, Slice and Dice will at least be going on a hiatus. We're trying to find some new formatting stuff to figure out ways to kind of build the channel up a little better. There are so many shows going on Wednesdays right now. It's become really kind of bloated, and it makes it very hard to. I don't like the word compete, but that's really the only word there is. There's just too much other distraction going on, and so we're going to figure out a way around that. I also have begun. You were talking, BMAC, about all the games in your head and going from one to the other. So I have had way too many campaign ideas in my head lately, especially since I read all the Shadow Dark zines recently. Somebody told me that Shadow Dark couldn't be a campaign; it was too much like a one-shot game or a short adventure game. So immediately my brain went, "Prove them wrong."
Yeah, Shadow Dark does a campaign very well, actually.
So, I have been taking some of the ideas I will never have time to run and turning them into little 1-minute videos. So anytime a game master is supposed to run a game and they don't have any ideas, they can feel free to take one of those adventure starter ideas and use them to their heart's content. I also include whatever the system was that inspired the idea, but they're usually pretty general and can be used with anything. So hopefully people will enjoy those. And other than that, if there are things that people would like to see on the channel, I really hope that people will reach out. I've been thinking about doing more individual interviews. I have been thinking about, people have been talking a lot about live play games, but man, it's really hard to do that in a way that's engaging and interesting to a watching audience. Barlow Keep would probably be much better at it because he's got all sorts of visual stuffs, whereas he's like, no.
No, my biggest problem is that I'm not sure. I've only tried role playing in English once, so that's a big hurdle for me to go over first, to try it out maybe in a more private setting before I come to any live plays. But I would like to do some, actually. But
what I meant is a lot of your videos are around visuals and how to make things more engaging. Whereas, I write nonfiction and I lecture. So that's, I do a lot of theater of the mind stuff, and that's not very interesting on video. So, those are all things we're going to be working on. Hopefully, the channel will be moving in a more active engagement type of way. And so I will keep everybody updated as we go. As always, the Discord server, the Eclectic Herd, will be open. I invite all of the panelists to join so that if anyone has any other questions they think of later, they can ask you those after the fact. I want to thank the chat and the panelists, as always, for being here. You have been fabulous. And nothing broke this time, at least not severely. So, so everyone have a wonderful night. And happy headbutting.
Meet me at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to gab with you. We'll talk about immersion, adventure heavy lows, characters and story, warlocks and barbarians and bards, comedy or horror. We got inspiration if you're in need of it, or just need to hang out somewhere cozy. We're the guys for you, we've got time for you. Come and join the crew, here's what to do. Meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards. Meet us at the tavern, have a drink or two. I'm the eclectic goat, and I'm here to play with you. We'll discuss the theory and the mechanics, how we ask for crits, Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards.